Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in Nerdy Talk do not represent those of Anime Herald. Due to strong language, listener discretion is advised. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's time for Nerdy Talk. I'm Mike Ferrer, and I'm joined by the following people.
Anthony Simpson.
Matt Brown.
And I'd like to be the first to welcome you to the, well, probably not the first, but anyway, welcome to the spring 2014 anime season. This is going to be a special episode where we're going to be discussing the best of last season, the hot stuff of this season. So, I guess we'll get started by jumping right in. Last season we saw a really good lineup, really strong selection of shows. So, what would you guys think would be your favorite show, the show that you absolutely hated, and any recommendations that you'd have for viewers that are a little late to the party?
I guess I'll go first. I'll start with the show I disliked, or at least the show I thought was the weakest of Ice Team was Wizard Barsters. Now it started actually pretty good. The first episode looks really, really good. It has a lot of action and it looks very nice. And the rest of the time it isn't bad. But until you get to episode 11, which is probably I'd probably say the only anime that I've seen that, at least as it airs, that had that was the most incomplete. I think it had like maybe 2 or 3 minutes of just like stills. There was like absolutely like no animation. Like you would hear like sound effects, but there would be like no movement. And the one here I'm going to explain which had it was really the worst. And this is kind of a small spoiler, but I'm not going to give names. One of the characters gets shot. So the guy shooting him has a gun. And they do a close-up of the gun, and the gun fires, and then they pull to like this pan shot where the guy's still holding the gun, and there's another guy laying on the ground. But when you get shot, you bend over and fall down. Well, he's just on the ground, and then one of the other main characters is standing over him, and they're talking. No, there's like no lip flaps or anything. Like there's no detail. And the guy fires the gun again, but there's no movement. You just hear this bang, bang of the gun firing, and the gun's stationary. And then a couple of times it does zoom in, but it's basically like a reused scene because the guy's on the ground, and he's shooting at the guy on the ground, but the gun's still pointed straight ahead.
I think that tops Evangelion's long, no-movement scene in the elevator as worst misuse of animation ever.
Well, I haven't. Now, episode 12 actually wasn't bad, at least in terms of animation. It was actually pretty decent. Is it a show I'd recommend? No. I'm probably not going to, I'm not going to buy it when it comes out. It's not a show that I'd want to ever watch again. But again, I didn't waste my time. But it definitely was the weakest of the shows that I watched. For the show that I liked, or at least my favorites from, I'm actually going to talk about 2 carryovers from the fall season, and that is Nagi no Asakara and Gundam Build Fighters. I'll start with the first one. Nagi no Asakara which was licensed by NISA America, which you should get it when it comes out, is a story about these people who live in these humans that live in the ocean, and there's also people that live in the ocean and people that live on land. What it is the story revolves around these 4 middle school students who they live in the ocean, but their school closed down because they didn't have any students, so they had to go on the land. And what I really liked about the show is that it had a lot of feeling to it, and everything felt genuine. It didn't feel nothing felt forced. It didn't feel like trying to make these what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't feel like that they were portraying the teenagers, that they didn't feel like they were teenagers but had like they said things like an adult would or acted like an adult would. They felt like teenagers, they reacted like teenagers. And people might say, another anime with teenagers in it. But even for that, though, it's still actually very good. The cast is likable. The relationships, the way they portray them, is very believable. It's not like a force, like, oh, this guy has all these girls to like him for some reason, and it's never explained. Here, it does feel genuine that, for the reason that the girls like this guy it does feel genuine. It's not like, a harem where you have like average everyday dude and has like, the 5 hottest girls in school like him for some reason. It doesn't feel like that. That was probably my favorite. My overall favorite. The other show I want to talk about, and why I said was Gundam Build Fighters. Now I know, yes, it was basically a glorified toy commercial, but I think people tend to forget though that the other Gundam shows are basically toy commercials, just they weren't as blatant about as this one was. But that being said, though, this is probably my favorite of the alternative universe Gundams. So I'd say probably it's up there in terms of, well, it's my favorite along with G Gundam and Gundam X from the AU shows, because those were my favorites. And this one was just great because it was basically like, what's the one look? It was sort of like an all-star series. Like they had all these mobile suits from all the different shows. Now they were like model kits versions of the mobile suits, and some of them were modified versions of that. But it had all those, and it was to show that, yeah, if you do know a little bit about Gundam, you can enjoy it. But if you like for me, who's pretty much a hardcore Gundam fan, and you followed it pretty regularly, or you watched a lot of the other shows, or you've read about the different mobile suits used, this is going to be for you. I mean, some people, and I know you might say, oh, it's a toy commercial. But even then, even though it was blatant, like I said, blatantly what it is, it doesn't try to hide the fact that, yeah, it's a toy commercial, but it still has a very good story about, friendship and, overcoming the odds. And like I said, I'd recommend it. I know it's never probably going to get licensed here, which is really a shame. But if it would, I'd probably buy it right up.
I mean, it's one of those things that just, it's an unfortunate trait of mecha shows that every one of them is a toy commercial.
Yeah. I mean, this one's just kind of more blatant. The other ones, yeah, you're right, they are toy commercials. This one's kind of more like, yeah, we know that we're a toy commercial. We're not trying to hide that. It's not like we're a toy commercial, wink, wink, nudge, nudge type of deal. It's like, we know we're a toy commercial, and then then it's a story around that. But I mean, other than that, it still is really one of my favorite Gundam shows ever.
I can understand the outrage, but at the same time, I can't, because I'm a child of the 80s, so I grew up with the age where the toy commercial cartoon was king.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you
People
had...
are just pissed that they can't buy the toys in the States or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I grew up at a point when at any given time you had stuff like Transformers, G.I. Joe. Yeah, no, I'm naming off these popular toy lines. Strawberry Shortcake, My Little Pony.
Mask.
Oh yes, where they worked at a gas station. But
He-Man. Did you mention He-Man?
He-Man was the biggest offender. Yes, it was made explicitly to sell toys. I mean, these are iconic figures in this day and age. So to see these people getting upset about a Gundam show that's basically a toy commercial, I have to laugh a little.
I mean, I understand.
G.I. Joe had sorry.
I mean, I understand that, yeah, because, all the other Gundam shows are pretty much war stories, and even to some extent, anti-war, stories that are pretty much anti-war. There isn't really that here, but that's not to say that the story isn't bad. It's still a good story. I mean, It is kind of basic. Like, it is kind of almost sort of a shonen anime, friendship and, fighting. And, it's, like I said, but even then, it's not, it wasn't terrible.
Right. I mean, it was aimed at kids to begin with, though, wasn't it? Like, it was slotted as a kids show, so I can kind of...
Yeah, well, like I said, I know people, I know Tamino doesn't want to think his shows as being his Gundam shows being, toy commercials, but they are. I mean, they just weren't as blatant about it.
Oh God, yeah.
And you also have to remember too, I think it was Reagan was the reason why he lifted the rules that allowed, I think, those type of shows to be developed in the 80s, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Yeah, he lifted the rules, and then that let those type of shows to be created. Which, I mean, it isn't a bad way to, advertising a product. I mean, it works for Transformers. I mean, they're still making them.
Exactly, and they've got the dedicated fan bases that'll go nuts. They'll buy the comics,
yeah,
and
the
shows.
And they still make G.I. Joes, action figures. I don't know about He-Man, because I don't...
He-Man exists mostly as kind of like a kitschy type of thing now, but I mean, you have like Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Pony are huge still.
Yeah, well, I'm not even gonna touch the bronies.
I'm not even touching it. I'm just talking about market cap in general.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get back to topic, because I kind of pulled away on that one.
Yeah. That was it for my carryover shows. I did actually want to talk about one more show.
All right.
Oh, this was specifically a winter show, and that was No Unagun. If you count just the shows that air in the winter, that'd actually be my favorite. It had a great opening. Respect for the Dead. I mean, that opening's great, and it's all in English too, so that makes it even easier to listen to. Yeah, I mean, the show did have a few problems, but it was one of those type of shows that you enjoy watching it so much you really don't care about the flaws.
It's a show that's just fun to watch.
Oh, well, I loved it. I mean, it was ridiculous that I'll tell you how ridiculous. I don't want to say ridiculous, like how cool it kind of got was towards the end of the series they had this fight against these. What it is that these aliens came down. These objects came off. I think it was an asteroid that hit the Earth, and they had these things called these organisms they were fighting against. And what it is that these people they have the blood of certain historical figures added into them. Like the main girl, she has Nobunaga's blood in her, and her partner that she works with has like Jack the Ripper, which actually is kind of a little thing I won't spoil about actually who Jack the Ripper was in the past, which was actually very interesting, but I'm not going to spoil that because the last episode actually does kind of make it interesting. I mean, it's an interesting twist, which is something it's a fictional type of twist, but it still was good. But what they had this aircraft carrier, and on it they had all these like M1 Abram tanks, and all they just sat like one beside each other, just firing at this. I think it was this battleship class alien. It was just great. Them firing, and then you had, just like I said, other historical figures, kind of like I said, with somewhat a modern twist. The character designs at least when they're in the armor, is going to be something that you're going to have to get used to because it is a little different. It doesn't have the actiony feel. It's, I don't want to say almost like noodle-like type design, kind of almost a little bit kind of Western cartoony, but even then, I still actually really liked it. I do hope it gets a second season, only because I think there is more manga content. But even then, if they didn't make one, I wouldn't be upset. But if they made another one, I'd actually be happy for that.
Absolutely. I haven't seen much of Nobunaga, but I did like what I see. I mean, what I saw.
Yeah, and that opening, like I said, that opening's great.
It really is. How about you, Matt? What would you say are your big likes, your dislikes, and your under the radar favorites for last season?
For winter? Well, most of what I liked was carryovers. And before I get into those, I'm trying to see, let's see, for the new ones, just to recap, I viewed a few episodes of Nobunaga the Fool, a few of, what was the Hamatura? I think there may have been one other. Oh God, Pupa. That show is terrible.
Pupa was Pupa. It was not good.
Yeah, and a Strange Plus. I viewed a few of those. It was mildly amusing, but not, I would say, funny. And that was pretty much it for the new shows that I started watching. And there was another thing, the Pilot's Love Song, which is actually sort of a sequel to a movie called The Princess and the Pilot, which was released here by NISA, and I actually picked up a copy at Anime Boston and haven't watched it yet. So I'll probably follow up on that eventually, but kind of a straight up romance show. Seems pretty good so far. I've only seen a few episodes of it, but I will likely continue it. All right, so the carryovers I watched, pretty much Kill la Kill, which to be honest, I wasn't sure I liked it to begin with because it's pretty over the top, and at first it just didn't seem all that funny. I think like it was almost too early to start their antics because it just wasn't resonating. But after, I would say, 5 or 6 episodes, I got familiar with the characters, and it all just started being really funny and wrapped up in a very enjoyable way.
Agreed.
I think there was one other that I wanted to mention. Oh, right.
I still have yet to see Kill la Kill. I'm probably going to wait for that later in the year.
it's one of those shows that's so like it was and I think this is unusual for me, but I was okay waiting a week between episodes because it's like the stuff they do is so outrageous that it kind of like you get your fill, but it's okay to marathon as well, but I didn't feel like I had to.
Well, I mean, some shows are better. I mean, to me, this is not for everybody, but some shows do feel more at home just doing, maybe like watching a bunch in chunks. Like that's how I watched Attack on Titan. I watched like basically essentially over a couple like 2 or 3 days. I watched the first half, put it on hold, and then right near the end, I watched the rest of it.
Yeah, I wish I had done that with Attack on Titan.
Yeah, that worked for me, and I think. Now another show that's in the past that I did finish, and I watched a week to week, and I think now I can see why it'd be better to be a marathon with Psycho Pass.
Definitely.
I watched a week to week as it aired, and then now I still have yet to do the full rewatch of it. But when we were watching it the other week on our other show discussion, I was able to plow through, 5 or 6 episodes relatively easily. Just, boom, 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 like, knocked them all out. And I'm like, wow, that's definitely better to watch it in large chunks instead of week to week.
That was a show that was just enjoyable to watch.
It was. That's what I'm looking forward to in the second season of it.
And I wanted to give kudos to one of the shows that you mentioned, Anthony, the Nagi no Asukara.
Oh, yes.
I watched a few episodes of that, and it's really very good. It's an interesting premise. The characters, have some stuff that's apparently going on that alludes to perhaps traumatic events from before, and the immediate thing you're wondering is like, okay, what happened between those two?
The second half definitely is. I don't want to say much better, but the second half definitely is in what people like to call the feels department. That's definitely, it hits a lot harder in the second half than the first.
Cool. So that's one that I have not finished, but I will likely go back to.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely buy it when it comes out.
I think that's it for the holdovers and the winter shows in general for me.
So what about you, Mike?
All right. Well, last season, I ended up watching a bunch of shows. The ones that weren't carryovers were the obvious Tonari no Seki-kun, Strange Plus, Hamatora, Nisekoi, Nobunaga the Fool. I watched a few episodes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did Space Dandy start in winter? Or I think that was winter, right?
Yeah, it was a winter show.
All right,
or winter series, sorry.
And Space Dandy. And as a carryover, I watched Kill la Kill. Personally, I dropped Hamatora and Nobunaga the Fool. I just could not get into Nobunaga the Fool just because, no offense to people that liked it, I just thought the concept was blatantly stupid. I really couldn't identify with the whole situation or what was going on there. I mean, it was basically Joan of Arc and the Samurai Warriors in space. So, I mean, I just couldn't get into it. Hamatora, same boat. I really just, while it was interesting at points, it really just didn't grab me as a show. It was pretty much a detective show with superpowers, so it didn't really wow me in that end. If I wanted a detective show, I'll put on like a Detective Conan or something like that personally, but that's just preference. I'd probably say my absolute get the hell away from the show was Pupa. That was Pupa.
I've heard that show is really bad.
Pupa? It is bad. It's got some really creepy incest stuff going on there.
Well, I mean, if you're into incest, I guess that's not a bad thing.
Well, it's
it's worse than incest.
It's vor incest.
The creepy incest was a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, it was vor-cest. I'm sorry.
Now, let me ask this question: do you think the fact that it was a short show, like one of them 5-minute anime shows, do you think the fact that hurt?
Oh no, it would have this is a show that would have sucked either way.
Yeah, the premise, characters, and plot is what hurts.
Exactly.
Because that's the problem. How a lot of some of these short shows is that it's because the fact that they're so short that I don't know. It feels just like they kind of get 2/3 of the pot. They get 2/3 of the way there, and then it's just like, well, and they drop the ball somewhere, or because it's short, they don't have really time to make it at least make it a decent enough story.
Right.
I mean, you could call it. You can call it gross. I would say not exceedingly gross because it didn't make me physically sick like Ichi the Killer episode 0 did.
You're welcome.
Was it you who sent me that?
Yep, because I was the CPM contact at the time, remember?
Yeah. It's like I can understand the desire to give me a little payback for the likes of Gene Shaft and
Divergence Eve.
Totterto and Divergence Eve, but that was rather excessive, Mike, and I didn't appreciate it.
To be fair, you did jump on a bullet with Better Man. Or you did jump on the grenade with Better Man. That
show is just bad. It doesn't make me want to, harm myself in a physical way or have any kind of physical reaction.
Yeah, Ichi was... I can't even think of words to describe that show anymore. I mean, it was... Just,
I think disgusting fits pretty well.
Yeah, disgusting and grotesque.
Gratuitous.
Yeah, it's
I even liked Gantz better, and that show is... That show is like the very meaning of gratuitous.
True. Anyway, my pick for the season was probably... I mean, it's a hard one because I really like Tonari no Seki-kun, but I'd probably have to say Nisekoi, just because it is a cute show. I like the characters, I like the sense of humor in it, and it was really just enjoyable to watch. I know it's still running, but I do kind of hope it ends as strongly as it started off.
That's not one I'm not watching that one. I've heard other people say it's not too good.
I enjoyed it. I really did. I mean, I also went into this thing with the lowest expectations possible because, well, I tried to do it with anything I watched, but...
That's how I wind up saying I like anime that I really shouldn't say I like, in front of other people.
I mean, I
did not... I expected, negative quality, and the show did better than I expected.
Exactly. I mean...
I'm not talking about this show, just saying in general.
Exactly. I mean, I go into a lot of shows with just zero expectations just because I've kind of learned over the years going in with any type of hype is going to ask to get hurt. I've had so many cases where I went in and wanted to like a show so badly, and it just knocks it down a peg. Moeo Kano was the first one to volunteer to watch that when we were getting screens from ADV because you can confirm with madness, I'm one of the biggest Sakura Wars fanboys there is. And
I was going to say, wasn't that Fujishima? That was...
this was actually Oji Heroi's based on a PS2 game of...
Right.
So
yeah, I can understand the initial desire to watch that.
But then I saw it was a weak plot, kind of... Alright, it was stupid. The writing was bad, the characters were weak, and it had a fucking Batmobile in the Samurai era. That's when I checked out. I said, nope.
That sounds really bad, really awful.
Mm-hmm. Then they made a TV series, and I said, it can't be as bad as the OVA. It was worse. Even if the Sakura Wars OVAs were mediocre at best, the TV series was actually really good. So I said, it can't be that bad. It has to be at least... No. Just no. It was terrible. They didn't even have the Batmobile, which made it even worse because they didn't have that hilariously idiosyncratic thing that at least gave you some humor in the OVAs. No,
technically it was not as bad as the OVA. It was worse.
Yeah.
Not as bad.
No, it was worse. But yeah, other than that,
that's usually what happens with, well, I won't call it a spin-off, but a related thing, which is even worse than a spin-off in a lot of cases.
Sure, but I mean, what killed me with that one was...
From the art director of
Yeah, what killed me with that one was that it was just Sakura Tyson always got treated so well. I mean, the movie was enjoyable. Granted, it didn't do anything to align the characters, but it was enjoyable. It was a good bridge between 3 and 4.
I still can't remember a single thing that happened in that movie, but I remember liking it. How does that happen?
I don't know, but I know started with Ratchet going to theater, blah blah blah, American company, blah blah blah, demons, blah blah blah. Person turns into a demi armor from Maze the Megaverse space, blah blah blah. Ogami saves the day. Hashide Kosoku no Teiko Kakina, and happy end. That was it. I don't even know how I remember that much, but anyway.
Oh, you mean happy ending in general?
Yeah.
My mind flashed to the band.
It was enjoyable, but the catch was you needed to know the characters.
Maybe that was it. It's like, it's enjoyable because you know the characters and they're acting the same way they always do, and stuff happens, and it's over.
Yeah, it felt like it could have been a chapter in Sakura Wars 4, pretty much. Which, if you remember correctly, it was kind of was not the best in the series.
CG and steampunk. What a brilliant combination!
Yes. Anyway, getting back on topic, are there any shows from that last season that you guys would like to just give a shout out to, and recommend for people to just sit and watch if they get a chance?
Most of the ones I've all said. I'd also recommend Space Dandy if you want to see. I didn't talk about this either, but I'm going to. Of all the winter shows that I finished, Space Dandy was my second. I put it as my second best. It was a bit uneven, but even that's not necessarily a bad thing. I thought the show that as a whole, at least the first season, at least until we get the second part here come July, wasn't a bad series. I thought like any series, it had its ups and downs. It had some. I thought the first episode was a little on the weak side. I think that's sort of why I almost was like, I'm like, kind of like, because I watched them just like, no, that wasn't so good. And I'm like, well, I'll give it another shot. And then, the second episode, hooked me in and I liked it. I just wish, like I said, the first episode was a little more on the zany side. But I would recommend it. I mean, it's like I said, it's not going to be for everybody. If you're interested in seeing something that's a little different from, what's been coming out lately, I would recommend it. But I wouldn't give it like, yes, everyone's got to see it. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I realize this is not a show for everybody.
Absolutely. Because
I know you watched it, Mike.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I do have to agree with the other complaints there. The uneven quality really does hurt because, I mean, while we do get some really interesting stuff out of it, thanks to the fact that they were using like a different director each episode.
Yeah, a different writer too, I think.
And a different writer. It really did kind of hurt that there was no real coherence in that end either.
I mean, I'm not saying I need to have like a very like set story. Like I didn't need like a. I think if it would have tried to be the way it was and then tried to set like an overarching story, I think it would have failed.
Oh God, yeah.
It's better. I mean, it is kind of the way that. Yeah, okay, spoiler. It resets kind of at the end of every episode in a way. Sort of similar how like some Western like Looney Tunes was, like stuff like at the end it just resets and everything's back to normal. I think it did work for this. Like I said, if it tried to do like a continuing story, I think it would have been a big failure. I hope they don't do that for the second half, because I heard that one is supposedly they're going to make it a lot more zany, from what I'm told. A lot wackier, which I think will work in its favor. I mean, now they did do a serious episode, and that actually was one of my favorites of that series. I actually did like that one because it did kind of give some of the more serious episodes. I think were good. Like that episode was really good. The one with QT with the coffee maker, I really liked that one. And I think it was trying to think of that cat's name. Was it Meow?
Meow, yeah.
Yeah, he even his where they did stuff like that Groundhog Day type thing where they went through like 108 days and it's the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That one I really liked too, because I thought that was another good episode. At least develop him, and and you see his family, and what they do, and although I got to give him credit, they didn't try to do an endless eight with that. I'll give the show credit for that.
Yeah, thank God. That would have just been horrible.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I did like Endless Eight, but then again, I did see it, DVD when I watched Endless Eight, so maybe that's why I liked it.
I mean, if you were watching as it was coming out, it was the biggest troll ever.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a problem if you didn't know.
I think it's pretty trolly either way.
Yeah, it is.
Shoot, I mean, the original story is pretty much a troll.
True.
Yeah. Getting back on the Space Dandy, I do hope the second half is good.
I do as well, because I really did enjoy Space Dandy. It was a bit uneven at times, but it was still a really fun, really enjoyable series.
And that, like I said, saying it was uneven is not necessarily always a bad thing. I mean,
not at all.
It wasn't like uneven like some other stuff I've seen in the past, but. Like I said, it was uneven, but not, like I said, that's not necessarily a knock against it.
No, honestly, the unevenness was actually kind of interesting because it did share some aspects with a show that I've recommended a few times in the past, Seraphim Call, where each episode was presented so differently that they really did kind of get to play around and experiment, which I really appreciated.
It's a little bit different. I mean, that show is more like
Our House.
Yeah, well, and it's all of these worlds are like they live in the same general area, and that's the only real connection between them. Whereas, as I understand from Space Dandy,
it's the exact same cast.
It's the same cast, but different studios.
Right, and I mean,
so it's in that sense, it's more like an Animatrix, but well. Kind of halfway in between.
Yeah, kind of sort of a little bit of both is a better way of putting it. So how about you, Matt? Anything that you'd probably say to people to just, if they get the chance, sit and watch it?
Hard to say. But I would like to repeat the pilot's love song. I think if people watch the early episodes, they'll be surprised by the quality of the writing, and the premise is genuinely interesting. It's like a royalty figure has been busted down to serving someone else. But it's not like a teen angst sort of thing, where he's constantly railing against, Roro, fight the power, stuff like that. It's just kind of living his life and meets this girl who's more noble than he is, which is probably very awkward for him. But I can't speak to the later episodes. There's only, it looks like 13 so far. So it's probably not far-fetched to say that this is worth watching. But I have not seen all the way up until the 13th episode yet.
Yeah, so I think that's only how many episodes there are. 13. I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's 13.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, so I know it's 13. I didn't know if that's where it ended.
I think it does.
Makes sense.
Yep. All right, and I guess I'll just toss mine in real quick. Out of the shows I've seen during the winter, if I had to say one that you should kind of sit and watch if you get the chance, outside of the obvious, like the Kills, the Space Dandies, I would probably say check out Tonai no Seki-kun, just because while it is a short show, it is a fun show that doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't really try to be overly ambitious with the formula, but it works well within. So it doesn't give you those issues like the trying to be too big for his britches. But if you go in there expecting each episode Seki-kun is going to do something crazy, the girl next to him is going to freak out, you're going to get a good gag out of it, then you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I tried myself watching that, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I really do have a lot of problems with the short series. I'm going to mention that in our next segment, but I mean, it's hard for me to enjoy a lot of those, and the only one I really ever liked was Italia, but that works for that type of format because the way they write it, from And again, I don't know if it's because of the way they're adapting this from the manga, but it works in that type of short form. It works.
Now that you mention that, I think the only short episode type of show that I really enjoyed was Adventures of the Mini Goddess.
Mini Goddess was great. It was
like funny as hell. I could not stop laughing at that stuff.
That poor rat. Poor Ganchan.
But I've seen a few more like 15 episode or shorter, or 15 minute or shorter episode formats, and yeah, it's could be just bad luck, but I didn't really see any I liked.
What about Galaxy Angel?
That was 15 minutes, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I honestly forgot about that. Galaxy Angel is hilarious.
Yes, honestly, this is a shout out to. It's a really old show at this point. It's Galaxy Angel. It's each episode's about a little under 15 minutes long, but great characters, great writing. The humor is just off the wall.
Just seeing Dejiko reporting the news about a sentient tank was just freaking hilarious.
Yes, it was. DNN.
Right, Dejiko News Network.
And then you had Fujiko doing weather in the background. Yeah, that was great. Also Digicarrot, just because it's Digicarrot. All right, moving on, guys. As you know, the spring season just started, so that means new shows, new fun stuff to watch. So what are you guys watching right now?
I'll start. I'll just list all the shows I'm watching at the moment, and then I'll kind of go back and talk about them later. The ones that I'm following are Black Bullet, Brenda Heart in the Darkness. I know I just butchered that name. I'm going to say some of these. I'm just going to say the English translation because I'm going to butcher it in Japanese otherwise. Is The Order a Rabbit? Is the other one I'm watching. Next is Diamond. What?
Sorry, that was Gochumambo wa Usagi desu ka, right?
Yeah, Kenzen Robo Daimler. I'm just really butchered that name again.
Dime Dealer.
Yeah, I want I'm gonna have fun talking about. No Game, No Life, Nana's Buried Treasure.
Seikoku no Dragonar.
It's Dragonar. Once again I mistyped something.
No worries.
Yeah, Selector Infected Wick Sauce. I think I just pronounced that right. Let's see what else here. The World is Still Beautiful. Soul It or Not, and the regular at Magic High School. Those are the shows that I'm watching this season.
All right, any that you'd really recommend out of that group so far?
Which one would I recommend here? Let me. I would say the World is Still Beautiful. I'd say probably that's my favorite. Well, one of my favorite first episodes of the season. Basically, what this show is about is this girl basically gets married off to who's the fourth daughter of this. Is basically this princess of this land. And to retain their this nation's autonomy, she was basically married off to the prince, or the king of this, the Sun Kingdom. And she goes and meets him, and he's I'm not going to spoil who he is, but I'd say that would probably be in terms of my the first episodes, that's my favorite. At least in terms of being quality. Well, let's put it that way.
Right. Any of those that you've already dropped at this point, or?
The only two that I dropped was Akuma no Riddle and Maho Shoujo Tyson. The reason I dropped the Akuma no Riddle, I just wasn't particularly interested in it. It didn't grab me enough to want to say I want to see more of this. Maho Shoujo Tyson, that was another case of, it's a short series and just, again, didn't grab me. I didn't feel particularly interested in watching any more of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can almost picture that as like a fighting game. That's Sailor Moon versus
It's made by Gainax, which is unfortunate. I know people are going to say, "Oh, Gainax isn't good anymore." Well, Gainax. I mean, I kind of want to see Gainax make a comeback. I know most of everybody found that it left, but it's still Gainax. I mean,
I don't know. I would say that they aren't good anymore. I would say that they're occasionally good.
No, C3 Boo was still pretty good. I'm just really sad that didn't sell, but I know it's like people say, well, it's not Gainax anymore. Everybody left. It's like, well, Apple Computers is still Apple. Apple's still a company, even though Steve Jobs is dead. It's still Apple. Maybe different people running it, but it's still the same group. Or still the same.
Right. Besides, this is a company with, even though the people, like you said, have a lot of people have left, it still has such a rich history, and a lot of talent in that studio. They do occasionally come out with something really good. Frankly, I'd like to see more stuff like, say, Melody of Oblivion coming out, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, we all have our little things we want to see more of, but...
Absolutely. But, something of that tone...
If there was another Melody of Oblivion, then the Gurren Lagann team, or wherever the heck they are right now, would just rip it off, and that would be the popular one.
Well, they're a Trigger. That's where pretty much everybody left when they went and formed Trigger.
Yeah, so their success is almost entirely based on Melody of Oblivion, although people don't realize it.
Pretty much. Which is, it's a shame because it was such a fantastic show.
That's kind of that's one of my sore points. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say sore point. I think Melody of Oblivion's a good show and that people should watch it. And, they should watch it if for no other reason than to realize that the first half of Gurren Lagann is almost entirely a retelling of that story.
Absolutely.
Even though I love Gurren Lagann, it's definitely fun.
Definitely. Anyway, how about you, Matt? What are you watching this season?
So far, just Mushi because I can't help myself. Honestly, whenever a new season rolls around, I don't tend to jump into it right away. I like to use it to catch up on my backlog items, things that I can marathon and get through in a week. And on that end, I've watched the anime for Steins Gate and Robotics Notes, and the latter of which I've got a draft review, which will be submitted to you soon.
Hooray! Sorry.
And yeah, enough people have reviewed Steins by now, probably, but it's a time travel story in a similar vein to the movie Primer, which is definitely high points for me.
Definitely, and really has a good cast to it. Very, very strong characters.
Yeah, I actually watched the dub for the whole thing, and it was very enjoyable. It's the fellow from Spice and Wolf, and for some reason I keep forgetting his name.
J. Michael Tatum.
Yep, there you go.
I almost said Michael J. Fox, but I was going to say that. I'm like, wait a minute, he doesn't do anime.
No, but he did do Back to the Future, so you wouldn't be too far removed. You'd be 2 degrees away.
Yeah. Anything else you're watching, Matt, this season?
Other than that, I just finished up Steins a couple days ago, and I'm watching through the Psycho-Pass Blu-rays. Definitely very enjoyable show. And other than that, I have a big stack of Anime Boston swag titles, plus I don't even know where my backlog box is right now, and I probably won't get to it, but probably by next weekend I'll start watching through the new shows.
All right, cool. Personally, I've started 5 shows. No Game, No Life, Mushi, obviously, Comic Artist and Assistants, Bladen Soul, which I dropped like a hot potato, and the Kawaii Complex Guide to Manners and Hostile Behavior. At the same time, I've been kind of doing like Matt's doing. I'm hitting my backlog with Like I've been watching. I actually started Princess Jellyfish not long ago. Watching Gokudo, and I've also been watching a lot of Game Center CX. Not anime, but still awesome.
Now I've not seen Blade and Soul, but you did write an impression of that show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that first episode?
All right, Blade and Soul was probably my weakest point of the season, and I'm hoping it stays that way, because it really felt like a bad attempt at making a video game into a TV show.
Oh wait, hoping it stays that way.
I'm hoping that stays the low point. I mean, like, nothing gets worse.
I think you probably don't have much to worry about. It is Gonzo after all.
True. I mean, I think I was even sitting there like talking to Matt when I just saw it. I was watching the credits. I'm like, oh, it's a Gonzo show. I know what to expect. Anyway, I do give it credit for trying to do a fantasy series with a bigger implication, but the problem is that the world makes no sense. I mean, this is a world of swords and sorcery with high-powered assault rifles. So you got like the traditional warriors, mages, and stuff like that, and then you have these people walking around with like AKs and SWAT gear. So there was no consistency in the world. The characters were either fell into two camps: nondescript or sex objects. Every single male character was forgettable. Literally every single one. Whereas the females were sex objects, pretty much. They were curvy, they were attractive, and they had body proportions that may not be registered as, biologically practical.
Well,
hey, we're not talking about G-taste here. It's at least close to practical.
Well, isn't Blade and Soul, isn't that based off of a Korean MMORPG game?
Yep, that's where my joke came from. It was based off of a Nexon game, I believe it is. Or is it Nexon? I don't remember. But it was one of those Korean MMO makers. It is based on a Korean MMO by, I think it was Nexon, but I could be wrong. It might be the people that did, like, Guild Wars or something like that. It's one of those Korean MMO companies. But pretty much...
the publisher is NCSoft.
All right, so it's NCSoft. All right.
Parentheses Team Bloodlust.
Gotcha. So they did like City Heroes and stuff like that, I believe.
Let's see here. Available titles. And this is off Wikipedia, so
no problem.
I mean, Guild Wars 2 Lineage.
Oh, so I was right. Guild Wars.
Oh no, they're publishers, not the developers of that one, but
close enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely did feel like a video game adaptation, which I say in the worst way possible, because it's just, if done right, it should be, especially with a game like an MMO where you have years upon years upon years of lore to build on, it should not be hard to make a good show out of it. It really should not. But Blade and Soul managed to fall into every single pitfall along the way. I mean, the one thing I really did like about it, and I mean I really enjoyed, was the battle scenes. Just because the fights were just so fun to watch. They were well choreographed, had that nice satisfying bloody edge to it. They were a joy to watch. They were well animated. And it just, if they could build around that and make the rest of the show as strong as, even half as strong as that, it would be decent.
So it sounds like I did myself a favor by not watching that show.
You dodged a bullet.
Actually, there is one show I want to talk about, only because it's how ridiculous the show is, and that is Diam Ladur. I'm really like mispronouncing this. Prince versus the Penguin Empire. Sometimes you just have to watch one of them shows that it's so really stupid, but you just can't help enjoy it.
Yep.
This is that show. This show is so ridiculously bad, but at the same time, it's just like, you don't care. It knows it's stupid, and it revels in that. It doesn't take itself seriously, and it's a very ecchi heavy show. Let's put it that way. Because basically what is it? These aliens called the penguins, and they basically look like people wearing a penguin costume, like a full body, like kind of stocking costume.
The hell?
No, cone heads.
No, and they are looking for something. They're looking for high aero particles. And this guy, this high school guy, who happens to be basically a big pervert, happens to have a ton of these particles. And the whole thing is he has to get into this robot, and he has to fight these aliens. And the whole how he gets these powers is he gets it by basically doing eshy things. So one of the things he likes to do is one of these people that's helping him, he likes to grab her breast, and then he starts glowing pink, and then he gets all these powers, and he kicks the alien's ass. Oh, it's so bad.
And now it's become DNA squared somehow.
Oh no! This is ridiculous. Because I'll give you some more stuff. These penguins. Okay, so these guys in these penguin suits, but you don't see their face. It's just like a full body stocking. They have like this little penguin like beak. Okay, where like their nose would be, and they have tails, but the tails are not in the back. They're in the front. So when they're standing, it looks like they have like a really massive erection. Like you're standing there, and the guy's like, "What's?" He's like, "Our tail's in the front, so it's okay." And in the first episode, they invade this guy's apartment. And of course, he has all these porn mags, so they're of course reading them, and then they're getting ready to leave. They're like, "Now you gotta remember, when you're done reading somebody's porn, you put it all back where it belongs." And in the second episode, which actually just aired today, or aired as of this recording this morning, they do a little bit of backstory and how this one girl who's part of this group, her dad got traumatized because she was working for the UN. No, sorry, this is a spoiler. So if people don't want to hear these spoiled on the show, you can tune out for a little bit.
Anything but the UN.
Yeah. So these aliens come down, and he's standing there holding a bouquet of flowers. Like, well, we want to be peaceful. So they stand here, this 5, 6, 7, 8, and they start doing this dance. And then it's just not a very good dance. Then it ends with them doing basically these hip thrusts in everyone's faces. So of course, like everyone's panicking because they have, like I said, these, which the girl calls dick tails. And so they're thrusting in everyone's face, and everyone's like screaming, and then the girl's dad ends up in the hospital, and she's like, "Here, Dad, I'll give you a banana," and peels this banana, which is like, this has got to be like the straightest banana I've ever seen. And she like puts it right in his face, and she's like, "Here, Dad, eat this." He's like, "Get that thing away from me!" Like flipping out, like he's got PTSD. And
Did you say dick tails? Like,
yeah, that's what she calls it. That's what she calls it. Because the girl's like, she's like, "I don't like." It's like, "Well, you put your dick tail in my dad's face," and they're like, "They're not." She's like, "They're not." They're like, "There's not dick tails. It's word-facing tails." And they're like, and that I was like, that type of like that dance is like one of the most sacred things we do. And it's like I said, the show is so ridiculous. It's so bad, but at the same point, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it doesn't, it knows, like I said, it knows it's stupid. It knows it's very stupid, and it just doesn't, it just revels in that.
I can absolutely respect a show that knows it's that stupid.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's sort of a super robot show in a way. I guess that's what it is in a way. I'm not, which is odd because I really don't care for super robot shows. I'm more of a real robot show person myself.
Danger, watch behind you.
What?
He's singing the Dick Tail song now.
Oh, God. Yeah, but like I said, it's not going to be high art. It never is. And, I mean, if I did have to review it, I would really much lambast how bad. I mean, it is bad, but at the same point, it's so bad it's good.
For me, that show is Murder Princess. It's like a 6-episode terrible fantasy show.
Yes, it's
with like switching bodies and stuff, but it knows it's bad and it revels in it.
Oh, this is so.
Frankly, I can respect a show that gladly accepts it's a bad show, because at least then the crew can at least kind of get behind and get in on the joke instead of becoming just that company that made the horrible thing.
Like I said, it is ridiculous, and it is bad, but it's so bad it's good.
So they figured out they can make more money by not making a hentai
instead of making.
Well, like I said, the guy powers up by grabbing breasts. So I mean, yeah, I know that it might be a bit sexist, but
a bit.
Yeah. Well, because in the first episode, his I think his guidance counselor's talking to him, And somebody's like, "Oh, you're breaking the rules," and he's like, what, stirring your breasts? And she's like, "No, you're wearing the wrong school uniform," which of course then he grabs her breast and runs off.
Yeah.
Well, my whole discussion of the show is pretty much that pretty much hits that. Me describing how bad and how much I'm loving this show is that pretty much hits the not safe for work filter.
Definitely.
Okay, enough. I don't said all I want about that show. Now, you checked out No Game No Life, and I did too. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I kind of dug it. I like the fact that it's basically the whole concept of the real people being transported to another world, which has been done to death. But these are the biggest assholes you'll ever meet. They'll cheat. They'll outright screw people out of their money. I actually like seeing that, just because you don't see it too often in TV in general, let alone in anime, that the people that are being brought over are genuinely horrible. I mean, you can kind of take it in one way or another, but they're just not good people. And I kind of like seeing that side where they're kind of working in this world of strict game rules where everything's decided by the games, and they're blatantly cheating the system.
Sounds fantastic. Oh, hey, and it's also Madhouse. I'm game.
Exactly. I mean, Madhouse does good work.
I mean, they miss occasionally too.
Yeah.
I mean,
they pick up things that they probably shouldn't at times, but
well,
I won't hold that against them.
Yeah, well, what anime studio hasn't? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Oh, I mean, there's some that seem to do a really good job. I don't know if it's accidental, but like Bones and Production IG tend to, they have the occasional turd, but it's very seldom compared to the other stuff they do.
Yeah, Kill Ani's another one too, but in their defense, they don't do as many shows as Madhouse or an IG, Production IG, or Gonzo did, or other studios. They tend to do a bit less, which I think tends to be why they tend to have, I don't want to say higher quality shows, but they tend to have less. They tend to have less duds I think because of the fact they do. They don't make you don't look at say a chart for a season and say, oh, there's like four, there's three, Kill Ani shows. You see one maybe once one a season or one every other season. So
right.
In fact, they do less. I mean, although again, quality is going to be subjective per the viewer, but the fact that they do less, I think, tends to be that they don't have as many like stuff you look at and go, oh god, that was garbage. You don't tend to have as much.
True.
But like I say,
their overall production quality is really good. It's funny though. Like for a while, it seemed like Key Visual Arts were totally bankrolling them.
Well, yeah, because they kept turning out their visual novel adaptations.
It's like, KyoAni, I love you, but please stop doing Key shows like forever.
Right. I mean, but again, they do last. That's why I think they tend to also have those shows that you don't tend to see a lot of. Oh, they do it and then go back. I mean, maybe they do retouching things. But again, because they do less, you don't tend to have all them stinkers. I mean, not saying that you could do less and still screw up. But you tend to see that more with, I think, companies that do, or groups that tend to do a bunch. And plus also, too, KyoAni is also very selective of what they adapt.
That is true.
They did the key visual novels. They tend to do a lot of also light novels in sort of a way that they're sort of based on it, but they change them so much that they kind of stand alone.
And they're a big fan of slice of life stuff, I noticed.
Well, yeah.
Oh, and that's smart too. I think the visual novels and the light novels are. I don't know this for sure, but I imagine that they're much cheaper to adapt than manga are, and they probably get a bigger cut of the profits.
That I don't know. I know it is hard for some, again, especially if you're trying to do if you have like a long game and you adapt, trying to adapt it right is tough. Like again, for listeners, if on my review of We Without Wings, where you have a 50-hour game, you could and you try to condense it into a 13-episode series, it doesn't really work.
Or even worse, when you try and condense any game with a story into a 40-minute OVA. We're looking at you, Voltage Fighter Gal Kaiser.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can work and sometimes it doesn't work. Like,
well, yeah.
I never saw the there was a Xenogears anime, right? I'm not making this up.
Xenogears, no. Xenosaga, yes.
All right, Xenosaga. Anyway, if they had made Xenogears into an anime, I think they could have done that in 13 episodes and done it justice.
Yeah, that would.
There's some others that are maybe less well thought out and just sort of all over the place and wouldn't work so well. It just depends on the title, I think.
Yeah, and also depends on the production staff and who's writing it and the director.
But I think my point was the strength of the original work goes a long way.
Yeah,
or lack thereof.
Well, I mean, again, and if the group gets allowed to do some freedoms from the original source, either to expand it or whatever, that you can make something better.
Definitely, and I mean,
and that's not always the case.
Definitely, and I mean, I'd love to see that in. At least if they get that option to at least exercise to make a stronger work, but I mean, I remember coming from these days where they kind of had to adhere strictly to the plot, and most of those were just terrible.
Yeah, sometimes even if you have artistic freedom, the original work is a big enough turd that it just doesn't matter.
Hello, Blade and Soul.
There's that taint.
Hello, Blade and Soul.
Yeah, I think the worst offender in terms of restrictions on creative control is all of the manga adaptations. They've gotten a lot worse in that sense. The anime producers can't do a damn thing different.
Well, and I do think that is some of a problem, because if you're adapting something that maybe is popular but let's say not very good, you don't have the freedom to say, well, let's either. I mean, you don't want to take something and completely change it. At the same point, if they say you can't really change anything, then there's going to be problems. Like if you have a bad manga and that it's not over, and then you just add, and you create it, say it's a 13 episode series, and it gets to the end, it's like, oh, open ending, read the rest of the book to finish. And then you never get any more series. It's just like, well, you have the series that has this open ending, and it's like, well, there it is. And then maybe it's not very good, and there are some times where people are allowed to do, they are given some freedoms, but again, it all varies.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a shame because some of your biggest hits of the 90s they at times deviated wildly from the original source, like Slayers. Slayers and Slayers Next were actually pretty faithful to the novels, but then you had Slayers Try, which we won't talk about that one anyway. But you had like Karikano. You had
there were like epic battles between the mangaka and director on that one.
Oh yeah. Sailor Moon.
And I think that sort of situation works out better than people would imagine, because honestly, both the manga and the anime are great in my opinion. The anime has a couple episodes that are just what the fuck. You should have ended it 2 episodes ago, but. I think Anno's style was terrific for Karikano, and Tsuda just didn't want to admit it.
I mean, sorry. No.
That can be hard to admit sometimes. That can be hard to admit. Or if you don't like the way something's going, I mean, I can see somebody getting upset if you had something that you created and then somebody doesn't treat it the way you wanted it. I could see being upset. Or if you don't, or you don't agree with the way they portrayed it, I could see that being a problem. I could see, I could see that being an issue.
Absolutely, and then.
Well, I think it's natural to. I think it's natural to hold your work close to your heart and protect it from outside influence, but. On the other hand, if you agree to sign over the rights to make a film and you're not a filmmaker, then you to a certain extent you have to trust that the filmmaker knows what they're doing. If the process worked the way it should.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, in a case like that where the creator does have that ability to kind of go straight to the studio, I mean, then it just becomes a battle of egos. I mean, in that case, bigger ego is going to win. And there's going to be fights and bickering and all that goes on, because you're dealing with someone's baby and you're dealing with someone's vision of that person's baby. So there's no real winner in that case.
Right. I actually do want to talk about my feelings on No Game No Life. I actually really like this. I probably said on Twitter, but I think I said this is probably my favorite first episode of the season. And it was definitely one of my favorites, next to the World is Still Beautiful. I really do like the fact that this show is very, very colorful.
I do too.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I don't think maybe they needed to be as boom in your face with being as bright as it was. I think maybe they could have toned it back and it would have still worked.
The saturation, all that.
Yeah, that was really boom in your face.
I think honestly, for that first shot, it really helped because in the beginning, they kind of painted the world as this gray, lifeless place where people go, they live, and they just die, as opposed to this fantastic world where anything can happen. If you're good enough at doing these games, then you can pretty much take home the crown. I mean, I think they really wanted to kind of highlight that difference.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where this, to see where it goes. Is it going to be the best of the season? I don't know. It's a little early to say.
Yeah.
For me, I think it might be one of my favorites. Did anybody license that here for physical release?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think so, but I'm not positive.
Hey, let me look, because I know some stuff already got picked up.
Yeah, I mean, especially Sentai's been announcing stuff lately.
Well, NISA's already got a show, that flag show. And Aniplex already has a few titles, and Funimation's got their 11. Well, they got their 11 shows they licensed, that's another one I want to talk about in there, because I know people got upset that they got Ping Pong the animation. Because it's a sports anime, and the last sports anime they did was Big Wind-Up, and we know that didn't sell well.
Right.
And they're like, well, why are they doing this? They're not going to release it. I'm like, well, you remember now, Funimation does, they do sub-only releases now.
Yeah, they did Oni-Eye.
Yeah, although that show wasn't very good, but regardless.
It was a sub-only release.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if Ping Pong was dubbed. But
yeah,
the people they picked it up for are going to buy it, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm not watching it, but I am at every chance I get streaming it, so it can meet its numbers. Because I know people are like, well, they're not going to release it. I'm like, well, they do sub-only releases now.
And they did say pretty loudly at Anime Boston that stream counts do translate to physical releases.
And there's another thing that gets kind of interested why they picked this up. They did a release on, it was the Blessing of Compella, whatever that show was. Yeah. They had that Nozomi got. And I think it was one of the, I don't know if it was one of the administrators on the forums. I think it's probably I don't know who specifically this person was. But it's somebody that works for Funimation. They basically more or less said what I've heard other people say about other things, which is past performances, probably they said their best indicator of what they go after. If a show does well, they tend to go after more of those type of shows. Like Shuffle did well for them. That's why they tended to go more after those after ecchi shows, because Shuffle did well for them. Which is why they tend to, which I know people are going to say it gives them the reputation of getting the ecchi shows because they sell.
Right.
But they said I'm paraphrasing this because I don't have this in front of me, but basically is past performances our best indicator of, so I don't want to say future success, but what we go after. If we know that, okay, we have success with, these types of shows, we're going to go after more of these types of shows because we know that they do good for us.
Right.
Now, Ping Pong, the animation is sort of an anomaly because it's a sports anime. Okay, and over here, sports anime doesn't do very well. This is why we don't see a lot of it licensed. Even though this season we got like 3 of them. Is that right?
Yep.
And I know Sentai's got the one of them already, or do they have both? Or they have the volleyball one.
Yep, they got the sexy volleyball.
Yeah, and I'm not watching that.
I am. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't seen it, but I do. It is on my to-do list.
But now I'm not watching Ping Pong the animation, but I am streaming that. Like whenever I'm watching something else, like I go on my Roku and I say, okay, stream, and I just stream it as much as I can, so that if it does get released, even if it's sub only, the people who love that show could buy it.
Definitely.
Now, if this does well for him, will this mean we get to see more sports anime? I don't know. I mean, I know it doesn't do well here.
I think, honestly, the reason Ping Pong was a license is because it had such a big buzz early on, too. I mean, most sports shows, no one talks about them because, yeah. So I think that was a big contributor there. It was just that sheer amount of buzz when it was even first revealed as this is going to happen as an anime project all those months ago that kind of made him take a second look at it.
Maybe the thought process is, ooh, is this like Ping Pong Club? Watch one episode. No? Stop watching.
Oh, Ping Pong Club.
No, I've never seen that.
It's interesting.
But on the other, anyways, some people think it might have been part of a package deal, though I don't think we see them too much anymore.
No,
that caught me off surprise when I saw it. As I'm like, oh, that sucks. Simulcast. Ping Pong the animation. I about flipped the table. I had my laptop on when I saw that out of shock. Because I'm like, I didn't expect them to get that. I expected that. Now, of course, Crunchyroll got it for outside the United States. But I was just like, wow. I'm like, did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, that was just out of left field.
Now, like I said, I'm streaming as much as I can, so they get their numbers. And if it does well, like I said, it can get released, and then everyone can stop complaining about it. But, yeah, like I said, that doesn't really interest me. So, I mean, but like I said, if it does well and it gets released, good for the fans of it.
Absolutely.
I think you just never know with sports anime. I mean, I think back to titles like Princess 9, which
that got re-released. Well, that got re-released here recently. Right.
So I think Funimation and even ADV, because of the price of acquisition and the price of sale, probably did all right on that title.
Well, yeah, I've never seen Princess 9, so I couldn't tell you. I couldn't state quality on that. I've never watched it.
It's a very good show. It really is.
I think it's the last sports anime. I mean, I've seen Bamboo Blade, which is a good sports show. If you haven't seen it, I know I feel bad that it didn't do good for Funimation because that is a good show. The last, I know we're getting off topic here. The last sports anime I seen was Capeta, and that was last year. That one will never get licensed, which is sad, but that no one would want. That show's so niche, no one would probably buy it anyways.
Definitely.
Though it was very good, but anyways, getting back on topic here, let's see, what other shows do I want to talk about? Mike, did you check out the regular at Magic High School?
I did. I watched about 10 minutes. I just dropped it just because it did not grab me. I couldn't even make it through the first episode just because it was not for me. Yeah,
this is. I thought the first episode was all right. It was a 3.5 out of 5 for me. It did though cause a shitstorm over the internet about it. About the show itself, caused
really?
On ANN forums it did, but I won't go into that because that's if you're interested, you can go check that out. I won't get into what happened there.
I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about the show. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean it was, like I said, it was an all right for like I said, it was a 3.5 out of 5 first episode. It wasn't my show this season. Yeah, I am gonna, probably gonna keep watching it, and it is a 26 episode series, so there is always, it's probably gonna maybe have a slow start and pick up. But like I said, it's not one I'm like, oh my god, I gotta watch every, when it comes out. Like, it's not high on my priorities list, but it is something I'm gonna keep watching to see how it goes.
Yeah, the only show that I have to absolutely watch this season is Mushi.
Now, I haven't seen that because I haven't seen the first season.
Honestly, you can go into the second one without knowing a thing and you'll be fine. Because they do a good.
That's a qualified agreed on that.
They do a really good job of setting up the whole premise and everything, so I do recommend checking it out.
The second episode definitely stands on its own. The first one is it's sort of, but not really a throwback to the first episode of the first series.
Exactly. I haven't seen the first season. It is something I'll probably get to at some point. And I'll probably check out the second season at some point, too.
I just hope that it's priced sanely when it comes out, because I do want to buy it.
Well, Aniplex of America licensed, so, I mean,
right.
it'll be a good release, and people will buy it.
I mean, I didn't even pay Moggy prices for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a fan favorite. People will pay what, they'll pay what they want. They feel the show deserves, so they'll, pay whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the kind of favorite that has a rabid following, though, so the prices could potentially be reasonable.
Well, because, the ones their prices are what's what the market supports, and if they just put it on DVD, it'll probably be no more expensive. Well, was it a 12 episode? Is the second season a 12 episode series, or is it a 26 episode?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
It's 26.
Okay. As I said, if it doesn't look like something that's going to sell, they believe that AOA or Aniplex of America believe is going to be a huge seller, or at least they might up front just put out a DVD only release, which they've done it already.
Just as kind of an aside, everybody says they charge what the market will bear, but when you deal with exclusive licensing, that tends to skew the equation.
Absolutely.
And plus, again, too, some of the releases are imports, and when you have an import, you're going to pay an import price. Like we've seen with Persona 3 is coming out. I think the release of Orimo was, an import.
Yeah, Persona 3 is going to be $100 of limited edition or something like that.
Well, I mean, you are, and plus two, you are getting extras, but again, that's all.
Right.
I don't know about what physical extras you're getting.
You're getting a translation book.
Well,
I know you're getting a nice package overall. You're getting like the soundtrack or something like that too. Here we go. It's they did add in some nice stuff for the limited. I just don't remember what they are. I think it's like the original soundtrack, the companion booklet, and the translation of the companion booklet, and like stickers or key art cards.
Yeah, I think it tends to come down to how passionate the fans are with their wallets.
Absolutely,
is what I'd like to say, because like the Type Moon fans, they are especially rabid with their wallets.
Oh yeah.
So the Karu no Kyokai pricing sort of makes sense, even though I didn't appreciate it. Something like Rod, I think, was a mistake.
Agreed.
That was a little bit too high for the level of enthusiasm that show gets.
Especially considering how much, considering that had a previous DVD release that could be had for pennies on a dollar.
And high quality too. It was released by Genion.
It was a very good release. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely a misstep there.
I'll talk about a few more shows I've watched.
All right.
I want to talk about a couple more.
Right.
The first one I want to talk about is Black Bullet.
We're gonna have links to all the resources on these shows in the show notes, guys. So don't worry.
All right. This one actually is Black Bullet. This one's actually kind of an interesting little show. Basically, what it is that mankind gets in 2021. This virus comes and basically wipes out most of humanity. And sometimes like about 10 years pass, and there's this metal they find. This metal that can defeat these monsters. They erect these big like monoliths of this metal. Well, the people have to live within these monoliths to survive. Well, what they also find is these things called cursed children, which are, spoiler, kids who the mothers were infected with the virus, because what it does is, that people get infected to it, they turn, in the first episode, and again, spoiler here, this guy gets infected, and he gets ripped apart and turns into a big spider. But what happened is, when these mothers get infected, they had children, and these children are born with this virus, and the virus basically slowly eats away at these kids. But because of that, they can fight the Gastrea, which is the virus.
Mm-hmm.
They can beat them. And the thing is that all these kids are female. They're all basically little girls, and society sort of looks at them as kind of as like second-class citizens in a way, because in the opening, this guy this high schooler, he works for this group called Civil Securities, and he fights with a partner, which is one of the little girls who's the cursed children, and they beat this monster, and the guy's just kind of like, oh, these cursed children, huh? Like, and you could just tell, like, the way he's like referring to them, it's just like, like they're, I don't want to say they're monsters, but you can just definitely tell there's not like they're ill will towards them because of the fact that they are basically walking carriers of this disease, but they just, for whatever reason, and the show hasn't explained this yet, they haven't become these monsters. I thought it was a very good first episode. I know some people are going to be turned off by the fact that, yes, there are little girls used in it, the lolies essentially. And the main girl, she kind of is like, sort of like, oh, he's my fiance, and he's like, no, we're not. And she kind of wants, spoiler again, jump in bed with him, and I mean that in a sexual way, and he's just like, no, I'm not having that. So some people are might be turned off by that. But that wasn't a bad first episode. Again,
by the fact that he wasn't having that.
No, the fact that there's a loli trying to basically jump in bed with them.
I'm representing all otaku here.
Yeah.
Your advances are unwelcome.
Yeah. The other show I want to talk about is Soul Eater Not. This is basically, I guess you would call it a prequel to the original series. Now, this one caused a bit of a problem because the character designs are nothing like the original show. Because they're actually pretty close to the manga Soul Eater Not, which has a different art style than the original series. A lot of people are like, oh, well, they modified it, made it, ruined it. I'm like, well, no, they stuck close to the manga. It was a good first episode. If you like Soul Eater, I would check this out. You do see some people from the original series, but they're not. I wouldn't call them. They're not the main focus. Their main focus is on some different characters. But you do see, like for example, spoiler: Sid's not dead. Sid's alive in this one. So you get to see him as when he was alive. And you see the others people, but like I said, they're more like a supporting cast, not like main focus. Like in a way, almost I'd sort of say like on the second season of Digimon, where the original Digidestins, they exist, but they're not the main focus. And that's, I'd say, so far what I kind of got off of this first one is that, the original characters we all saw and loved are there, but they weren't like, they're not the main focus of the show. It's these three girls they focused on. One who turns into a weapon, and then two different handlers. One's sort of a ditzy girl who can't remember her name, and she's forgetful. And the other one's a standard rich girl who doesn't want to deal with commoners. But even then, those kind of sort of stock art character types, I enjoyed it. Again, I don't think this is going to be. I don't know how long this is going to be. It is by Bones, so it does look good. It sort of still does have that sort of Tim Burton-esque style that Sawyer had. Like the sun still has that look to it. And then we actually learn that the Academy is in America. They do say that in the show.
Welcome to America, where everyone dies.
Yeah, because I think it's set in because the manga, or I haven't read Sawyer or not. I haven't read all the manga, but they do say in the show and like in the girls on the plane coming to Death City, she's like, here we approaching Death City in America, and it's like, wow, so we finally do confirm that it is in the United States. I don't know where specifically. I mean, obviously it's not a real place, but I don't know if it's in Arizona or if it's like somewhere in the smack middle of the Death Valley. I don't know, but like I said, I enjoyed it for what it was. I don't know I know it's definitely not going to be action like the first series was. It's more slice of life. So, if that's not your thing, you can probably avoid it. But if you're, you like Sawyer and you want to see it, then, check it out.
All right, cool. Yeah, the only really big show that I'd probably have a few words to say about is Mushi, which, if you've heard us on the podcast before, Matt and I are huge fans of the series. It is just fantastic. And this new season, it really felt like just slipping right back into a comfortable experience. It felt like it didn't even skip a beat. It was just so wonderfully done. The pacing was great. The art style is still fantastic. The stories themselves are still enthralling and enrapturing. I'm probably going to go out and say it. This is probably my early front runner for best of the season.
Like I said, I haven't watched it.
It's certainly my favorite going in, but I'll try to keep an open mind with the rest of the stuff that comes out.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm sorry.
I mean, one thing I like, the way Mushi is structured is it definitely lends itself to running as long as they want it to, really, or even just going to sleep for a few years and picking it up again as they have. And I'm sure that has to do with the way the manga is structured as well. But it's like he's almost like an entomologist, somebody that studies living things, except the living things he studies are like things that most people can't see. So there's a bit of supernatural in there, but it's very methodical the way he goes about assessing a situation and treating people who are affected. Like
in the most recent episode, it has to deal with the Mushi that is basically a bird that is typically seaborne, but when it senses danger, it retreats to the beach and knows that hear its song, lose the ability to talk, stuff like that.
Yep, and in this case, the interesting thing was that the effect is temporary, and people that are affected by it get better. It's not really that happens. It's a bit of a spoiler, so sorry about that, but it happens in. I want to say a few of the stories in the first show too. There's always something that coming into contact with these creatures has a somewhat unique effect on people, and sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's permanent, sometimes it can be treated with medicine, and it's all over the board.
It is what it is type of thing, because the Mushi themselves are neither good nor bad. They just are.
Yeah, and it's kind of a good analog to the way that man interacts with the natural world. We dam rivers, we build villages, we do things that affect how other living things are able to live, and there tends to be conflict, and there tends to be unwanted or undesirable effects with that interaction, but we try to make it work.
Absolutely.
Now, did you check out any other shows, Mike?
Yep. I also checked out Comic Arts and Assistant, Kawaii Complex Guide to Manners and Hostile Behavior. And
sorry.
And those are about it for the current season at this point.
So tell me about Comic Artist and Assistant, because I saw you did a article in this one too. Can you tell me a little bit about this one?
Yep. Really, the reason I actually wrote up an article on Comic Artist and Assistant is because it struck me as a lot like a Galaxy Angel type of feel to it. What it is basically it's the daily lives of this comic artist for an Ichi manga, basically. And like most comic artists, he's a shut-in who's not very good with people and fairly awkward in life. Now, this comic artist has an assistant who is at this point female. Just surprise, surprise, And
are you saying that she's going to be at some point not female?
Well, I don't know if they're going to replace her or something. I mean, I haven't read ahead, but so anyway. Also, I've been watching Princess Jellyfish, so I never know anymore. But unfortunately, she ends up becoming the subject of some fairly awkward situations. Like in the first episode, he's trying to get chapters of this book done, and the second line of the show is, "I need to grow up some breasts." So that whole short segment, because each episode is broken up into 3 or 4 3-minute segments, kind of like, say, like a Lucky Star or an Azumanga or that type of thing, where it's basically just a 4-coma adaptation. So that one's basically about him trying to get the perfect breast for his work. Basically, she says no. Then hilarity ensues. It's a show that is definitely not for good people. But other episodes involve him dealing with his editor, which the bane of all writers in general. She's apparently incredibly short, flat-chested, and at the same time she's got this girlish charm to her, so that becomes kind of a joke point as well, especially as you get further in the episode. One of the skits is her going through her daily life, and she runs into the comic artist again, who finds a way to work that into a way to embarrass the shit out of her. Generally, it's a short form show, and it definitely feels like a short form show, but at least they're not trying to do anything overly ambitious. It's a silly comedy that has good timing, good payoffs. I really found myself enjoying it, and the visual style is really nice too. With the use of almost like a monotone for the particularly extreme reactions. One segment it just goes into black background, blue characters with white accents. It really looked nice.
So it sounds like an interesting show.
I thought it was. Definitely not for everybody, but I found myself laughing pretty hard at it. And for the write-up I did, I ended up watching it another 1 or 2 times. Found it just as fun the second and third time through as that first run. So I'm kind of hoping they do keep that whole idea that you're looking at this world through the main character's warped eyes, just because it really works for comedy. I mean, the guy's definitely warped. He's definitely got something wrong with him in terms of like social acclimation, and that could have gotten very creepy, and it does at points, but it's surprisingly funny.
Now, you also checked out the Kawaii Complex 2 Manners and Hostile Behavior.
Yeah.
How was that?
Honestly, once I started watching it, the first thing that came through my mind was they're trying to do Maison Ikoku with a less charismatic main character. Because basically it revolves around this, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but this young man, high school age, moving into a hostile type of environment because his parents are going away on business. And as one would expect, the place is filled with colorful characters who will do anything and everything to basically make his life into a living hell. You've got the creepy, perverted old guy who does some really particularly odd things. Like the first time you see him, he's poking his head through this hole in a fence to an elementary school. Yeah, I know he should probably be in a van with no windows. But anyway, so a cop comes in. Cop says, "What are you doing over there?" He says, "Well, there's a hole here. I wasn't peeping, but the fact that there's a hole, you kind of have to stick something in it." So the cop kind of sits there, gets this knowing look. He's like, "I understand. You really need to plug that hole good," or something like that. So, I mean, the show really, really revolves around its secondary characters at this point, and who are just a lot of fun. They're definitely not the best people. I mean, again, that old guy's a pervert. Then you have the drunk office lady who's constantly doing really stupid extreme stuff when she's completely plastered. You have the landlady who likes to talk like a quote-unquote side character from a romance show, so she'll start saying these really offbeat, like often dark things without even thinking about it. It really kind of saddens me that the main character in that end is such a whiny little brat. I mean, it's kind of bad when halfway through the episode he's calling his mom, is complaining about this place, and the mom even says, "You need to stop whining. You've been doing this since the day you were born." But I mean, I'm kind of interested. I do kind of want to see where it's going. I hope that they stick with that whole angle. It'll never match Maison Ikoku. I mean, that was just a masterpiece, but it could end up being an enjoyable show at the end if they continue what they're doing with what they're doing right now.
I might check that out. Again, the summer season is kind of looking weak for me. Not going to be a huge amount of shows, so some of these ones that I'm not watching now, I might just pick up in the summer.
Absolutely, there's definitely a lot this season.
Yeah, because like I said, I had 11 shows, and there's still like maybe I think at least one or two more premieres. I know one's I think it's M3 something. I think that's. Hold on here. I'm looking at them right now as we speak. Because it's kind of late. It doesn't, I think, start till next. I think it starts next Monday, the 21st. Yeah, hold on here. Well, there's a real late one. That's the Monogatari series, but that's not till like the end of the season. But I don't watch it. Yeah, M3 Sono Kuroki Hagane or something. It's another. It's like I said. It's in a couple weeks it airs. That one I'm kind of looking forward to too. But that might be another one I might just go. Okay, you're getting pushed to summer. Because again, I have so many. Like I said, I have 11 shows, and then I have my backlog stuff I'm working on. I guess I'll talk about that. I'm still working on Sword Art Online. I'm only up to about episode 11, so I haven't got to the part that everybody hates, the second half.
What second half?
Yeah.
What second half?
Second half.
The other show.
It's not even the second. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I would say even the second half is not bad. It's just not nearly as good.
Definitely.
Because I really caused. Because I really caused a shitstorm. Like just everybody like commenting on it. But again, it was a hype series, so I guess that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable.
I'm just still up to episode 11. The other show I decided to part of my backlog was Rokubu SS, which is actually another sports anime. This one's about basketball, and it's about lolis and shotas playing basketball in a sense. mostly the former, the former, and not so much the latter, but. The first season was really good. I'm still really kind of miffed that it's not gonna. Japan pulled back the license and just said, no, you can't put a physical release out, which really kind of bothered me. But not much I can do about that. But I'm about
kind of like you said, they don't tend to sell well.
Right.
Well, it's not so much that it is a sports anime, but it's also a loli focused anime, and I know people are upset. They say, oh, well, they throw it all in these shows, it has to be popular. Well, throwing a loli character in a show, yeah, that may be popular, but shows where that's the focus, like loli focused shows, are actually quite niche. I mean, they're not huge sellers, and that's I think that's sort of a misconception some people have, is that yeah, it's okay to have a token loli. A lot of shows have them. Like No Game No Life has one, and the other show I described, Black Bullet, has one, and I'm sure there's some other ones in there, but again, that's fine because that's what they're okay to have in there. But like I said, the shows that's the sole focus, they're niche. They don't sell very well. And I'm surprised it got a second season. But anyways, it's a basketball show, but it is very good. I mean, I know there is some fan service, and that's going to turn that is going to be a turnoff for some some people say, okay, well, I'm not going to watch it because of that. But I mean, it is very. I mean, it's not all about basketball, and it is exciting. The basketball part is exciting because I mean, I played basketball when I was in elementary school myself. I lived for 1 year, but I do enjoy it. It doesn't drag things out. It doesn't have a lot of the problems that other sports animes does. It doesn't drag stuff out because basketball is a focus, but it isn't always the sole focus. It's about the cast. In this case, it's about the cast. But I'm up to about episode 5. I'll probably finish it next week. But yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm not sure what I'm gonna hit next. I might, because haven't been really watching a lot of anime other than the new stuff. I've been playing a lot of video games just because I'm trying to get back into that. Since our last recording, and I know I'm going off on tangent here. I did beat Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater High Def HD version. I did beat that.
Amazing game.
Yeah, well, the HD version actually it's an upscale. It does suffer a few problems, and I don't know because I haven't completely played all the PlayStation 2 version. Like I know there is some slowdowns, but it's really only in some of the cutscenes, and I don't know if that's the case because the fact that it's not like it's an issue where I don't want to say it's like a hardware problem because it's not like the whole bunch of stuff happening and you have like a slowdown,
right?
Because it only happens in cutscenes, so I don't know if this is just a case of from the original game that had that problem. The original PS2 version had that problem. I do have the PS2 version. I just haven't gotten that far into some of like the stuff with Colonel Volga. I think that's what his name is. The guy that does the lightning. Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, like some of his like stuff when he like points the bullets in the air and he gets hit by lightning. Sometimes that is a slowdown, but again, it's not actually during gameplay. It's only during the cutscenes. And again, I don't know if that's a case of because they took it from the PS2 version and that it was in there, and because this game is basically an upscale of it. So I don't know if that's the case or because it doesn't look like it's something that would be on the PS3 would be that demanding of the it wouldn't be that demanding on the system.
Mm.
Not like something like Saints Row games or something that's really highly detailed, which would be taxing on the system itself.
Definitely. I really can't comment. It's been several years since I played MGS3, so I'm not sure.
Well, I did also actually start playing MSG4 again. I did start that up again because back earlier in the year I bought the HD collection.
Mm-hmm.
Which it basically comes with 2 discs. The first disc is just the 4th game.
Right.
It's just the 4th game as a whole. The second disc has Metal Gear Solid 2 high definition. It has one of the I don't think it's Peace Walker. It's the other one for it that was on the PSP.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. It's Portable Ops.
Yeah, it's Portable Ops, which I play a little bit, and that's kind of, I don't want to say clunky, but it's kind of it's kind of like, I mean, it's not, I haven't beaten it, I just started a bit, but I'm going to go back, and then it has Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, the HD version, and also has the original 2 Metal Gear games, the NES games, and it also has the...
Was it the NES games or the MSC one? The MSX ones?
It's the MSX one, I'm sorry. It has Metal Gear and then Metal Gear 2.
Alright, cool, yeah, because, the NES, Metal Gear 2 in the US was actually vastly different from Metal Gear 2.
Well, I haven't played those ones. I have to, and then it also has a code where you can download the original Metal Gear Solid and the VR missions for free.
Nice. Let's see. Personally, I've been playing Suikoden 3 again. God, I wish I'd pick a new one. I'm probably a bit of a masochist for that, though, because this is like one of the earlier PS2 RPGs, and it definitely shows its age, but still a good-looking game, and the story is still fantastic. It's pretty much like all the other Suikoden games, highly political in nature, but told from a level where you're kind of the man on the ground that has to see it from the human end, as opposed to, say, a Final Fantasy Tactics or an Ogre Battle, where you're the one that's just, you're seeing the political theater play out. You get glimpses, but it's mostly from the eyes of the people that have to execute and deal with the fallout.
I never played those games.
The series is pretty much dead, so if you get a chance, do check them out. Especially if you can get a chance to play the first or the third. 2 is very good. 4 is a little bit slow, but
I heard that 2 was a grind.
Yeah, I mean 2 was good, but it was kind of a grind. The only reason I think that it got a lot of its infamy is because it had such a low print run, so it became prized by collectors. But overall, I thought the first game was much better in terms of pacing and story. I haven't played 5, so I can't comment. Alright, and that's our show, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Mike Ferrer, signing off.
I'm Anthony Simpson.
I'm Matt Brown. Have a good week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Every weekend.